Hello dear students. Now let us discuss concepts and types of hypothesis. What do you know about hypothesis? In research you must have heard of the term hypothesis. What is actually hypothesis? Hypotheses are tentative statements, proposed explanations on a relationship either or difference between two means. We are just mentioning something about result of a study. It can be either about the relationship, cause-effect relationship, about prediction, or about difference between means. You can read the screen. Hypotheses are actually studied hunches about your result. These are speculations about your result. What will be my result? Everyone will have some ideas, right? Suppose, for example, from your home, you are just moving to the railway station. You will have some hunches about it. Whether I'll get my train, whether it will be delayed, whether I'll get a traffic jam in between and something happens with my train. These are some of the speculations. When it will be very clear, so when the route is very clear, no traffic jam, and you reach on time, you have already started before time, definitely you can ensure that it is okay, I'll get it. The hypothesis, the assumption will be perfect, right? If you put tea powder, sugar and milk powder into boiled water, you will get tea. This is an assumption. So, if the condition is that water should be boiled, should be hot, then only the mixture will make you tea. So, blend of tea will be getting when it is okay. So, these are some of the assumptions based on the activity that we are doing. Similarly, in research also there is a chance of some assumptions. If I calculate some kind of statistical measures based on my study regarding social intelligence and aggression of primary school students. So, my assumption is that those who are socially intelligent will not be that aggressive. How do I get it? From various studies, from the review of related literature, from my own experience, I can get that assumption. It is not simply writing a statement as hypothesis. It is a studied hunch, it is a studied guess about the result of your study. Some of the definitions you can see. It is a conjunctural statement of relationship between two or more variables. Similarly, another definition, it mentions that it is a hypothesis is a proposition which can be put to test to determine its validity. It's a tentative generalization. Now, what are the characteristics of a hypothesis? This is plural, hypothesis. Singular is hypothesis. S-I-S will be at the end, right? It should be testable. A good hypothesis will always be testable. It should be clear and precise. No complication should be there while you write a hypothesis. It should be very specific. What is a matter? It should be very clear about it. For example, let me write a hypothesis. There is a significant relationship between academic performance and social skills. I'm just writing, it's very clear, precise. There are two variables here, academic performance and social skills. Clear? So, it is very specific and it is falsificable. And the other is it is falsifiable. These are the properties of hypothesis. It should also be predictive. It should all be predictive. simple, should not be very complex. It should be based on theory or observation. I told you. If you're writing a hypothesis, for example, the previous hypothesis I have mentioned, there is a significant relationship between academic performance and social skills. I mentioned this based on the reviews. So if I mention it through reviews, that means it is based on theory. If no studies happened about it. So if I mention a hypothesis, it can be through your observation. It can be through my own observation. That is also a concern of hypothesis. It can be based on either a theory or an observation or experience of the research. Time bounded hypothesis should be time bounded, directive, predictive. These are all some of the very significant characteristics of hypothesis. If you talk about a hypothesis, hypothesis should have its own variables in it. Independent, dependent variable, predictive and tentative relationship, not always, but in certain cases. For example, if I talk about a prediction hypothesis, for example, one is social skills predicts, social skills predict language proficiency of FIUG students. Social skills predict language proficiency of FIUG students. Here, social skills are considered as independent variable and language proficiency is considered as dependent variable. So, it is very clear. Otherwise, there are two variables. In the previous examples, I have mentioned significant relationship between academic performance social skills. I have not mentioned any cause-effect relation. I have just mentioned a plain relation. Through correlation, I will be finding out whether the relationship between academic performance and social skills is significant or not, right? So, can be. So, variable should be very specific. What kind of process is there? That is also to be very specific in hypothesis. Predictive, tentative relationship, all these are components of hypothesis. Now, when we formulate a hypothesis, what are the stages in it? Initially, all the researchers will have a statement, that is a problem. You have to have a specific problem. You should find out specific reviews about your research problem. Then you select your variable, identify which are my significant variables. For example, your study is relationship between, I'm just writing RN, relationship between X and Y. This is your problem. So, you should have studies, reviews related to X. You should find out all the reviews related to X. Again, as another group of studies, you should have studies related to Y component. Now, you decided, okay, these are my components X and Y. More than X and Y, I have some other components like I will take sex category as a variable, I will take locality as a variable, I will take birth order as a variable. So, I fixed all the possible and admissible variable to my study. Now, I would like to formulate hypothesis. This is the next stage. I have to write the hypothesis now. One will be related to correlation, relationship. There is a relationship between X and Y. There is a positive relationship between X and Y. There is a negative relationship between X and Y. These are the possibilities of hypothesis related to correlation and causation. When I write some other hypothesis with the other variables like sex category, locality of residence and birth order. In the sex category, I have two categories like boys and girls. I would like to compare. So, I can write this way, hypothesis, there is a difference between boys and girls in their x variable. There is a difference between boys and girls in their y variable. One kind of hypothesis. Another concern I can write, boys perform better than girls in x variable. Girls perform better than boys in y variable. Boys are inferior to girls in terms of variable x. Girls are superior to boys in terms of y variable. These kinds of hypotheses can also be formulated. Similarly, we can formulate hypothesis based on the other categorical variables like locality and birth order. Now the turn is to test of hypothesis. Once you design the hypothesis, you have to test the hypothesis. All the hypotheses developed should be tested, right? In the initial part of hypothesis and properties, we have discussed all these things. You get an idea, right? Different types of hypothesis. In general, hypothesis can be of null and alternate hypothesis. Null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis. What is null hypothesis? Null hypotheses are hypotheses used for testing the hypothesis. These are used for testing the hypothesis. As a part of testing of the hypothesis, null hypotheses are being used to test the hypothesis. What about alternate hypothesis? Whatever is positively stated, the hypothesis is not a whatever is positively stated, the hypothesis is known as alternate hypothesis. That is alternate to the null hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis alternate to the null hypothesis or just the opposite of null hypothesis. If I say that null hypothesis is always mentioned in negation. For example, there is no relationship between x and y. There is no difference between boys and girls in their x. This is the way of writing null hypothesis. So the alternate hypothesis will be there is a relationship between, there is a positive relationship between, there is a negative relationship between x and y. In the other case, boys and girls differ significantly in their x. Boys are superior to girls in their x. Girls are superior to boys in their x. These are some of the alternate model of hypothesis. You got an idea now. See, alternate hypothesis can be classified into two, or there are two types of major hypothesis. They are directional and non-directional hypothesis. When in hypothesis the direction is very clear, the hypothesis is a directional hypothesis. For example, boys perform better than girls in mathematics. So it is very clear that boys perform better. The direction is very clear. The hypothesis is known as directional hypothesis. There is a positive relationship between academic performance and socio-economic status. There is a positive relationship. This is also directional hypothesis. I have mentioned that there is a positive relationship. There is a negative relationship between anxiety and adjustment in the college. Anxiety and adjustment in the college, there is a negative relationship. Boys are inferior to girls in their language skills. Here, the direction is very clear. Such hypotheses are directional hypothesis when the direction is very clear. When the direction is clear, we call it as directional hypothesis. What about the non-directional hypothesis? When the direction is not clear, simply we state that there is a relationship between. We don't mention whether it is positive or negative. There is a difference between boys and girls in X, variable X. We don't mention who is better, who is superior, who is greater, who is inferior. We don't mention. We simply mention there is a difference between rural and urban students in their language skills. There is a difference among firstborn, secondborn, and later born children in their communication skills. We have not mentioned whether firstborn is performing better, the secondborn is having better proficiency, or the later born people have better proficiency. Nothing we mentioned. We simply mentioned that there is a difference, there is a relationship. That kind of hypothesis is known as non-directional hypothesis. Is it clear? So many people have confusions regarding hypothesis. Whenever you are formulating hypothesis, it should be either directional or non-directional. Never ever write null hypothesis as your major hypothesis. It can be used for testing of your hypothesis. Null hypothesis can be used for testing of your hypothesis. Got it? Yes. Now, certain other, its name is very clear. I don't want to explain much about it. There are hypotheses, simple hypothesis, very nominal hypothesis, complex hypothesis. Many variables are included and we are having lots of ifs and buts, conditions, more associations. Such kind of complex hypothesis can also be made. Associative hypothesis. If hypothesis talks about association, associative hypothesis. Causal hypothesis, we talk about prediction. Such this is also a classification of hypothesis, simple, complex, associative and causal hypothesis. You got a clarity now? What is a hypothesis? I am asking you, what is a hypothesis? Do you know what is a hypothesis? Yes, hypotheses are tentative generalizations. Before concluding, I'll give you how do we make a hypothesis, right? The first thing, let me give you one of the best thing in hypothesis. If it is a studied hypothesis, it is always valued in research. For example, you have to find out relationship between social skills and language competence. Social skills and language competence, these are the two concerns. So from this, how do you find out the reviews actually? From the databases, we go for reviews, we give the keywords and give it, right? Social skill you have mentioned, social competency, language skills, language competence, language proficiency, all keywords you have given. You got 125 studies. Altogether, to find out the relationship between these two or alternative paraphrased forms of these keywords, you got 120 studies in total. How many? 120 studies in total. All 125 studies. So you got 125 studies in total. How many? You got 125 studies. So all the studies have been looked into social skill and language competence as major parameters, right? Either language skills, language competence or proficiency. Similarly, social skills, social competence, social performance, social maturity. These are some of the keywords we have given to identify the studies. So you have used certain databases. One is Scopus, the other is Web of Science, the other is ABDC portal. You have also gone through the PubMed for that. From some of the other thing like Google Scholar, you have seen. These are the databases you have searched for with the available keywords using the Boolean operators you have just searched. You got 125 studies in total after removing all the duplications. Something is Scopus, same thing will come in Web of Science. Both will happen in Google Scholar, hopefully most probably. PubMed, ABDC sometimes it is also repeating. So all the repetitions you have removed and finally you got 125 full articles looking into the relationship between these two selected variables. Now you are going for a chart. What is, because you have to mention the relationship. So what is the chart? One talks about positive relationships. Both are positively related. How many studies report? Both are negatively reported. Sorry, negatively, both are negatively correlated. Both are negatively correlated. How many studies? No significant correlation. No significant relationship. Now you are going to categorize. These are the parameters. You are going to have the number because this is the relation status. Yes, this is the relationship status. What is the way of relationship? Here you have taken the number of studies as frequency. Yes, positive, you got 78 studies mention that they have positive relationship. 78 studies out of these two. Got it? 78. 5 studies mentioned negative relationship. So 83. 83 you got it. Now again some of the studies mention no significant relation. Rest of the studies mention no significant relationship. So here you have seen that most of the studies mention positive relationship. So you are also going for, most of the studies reported that there is a positive relation. So my studied guess is there is a positive relationship between social competence or social skills and language competence of FIUG students. I can write that. No worries about it. Support is the same kind. You have seen that. Suppose 60 studies mentioned positive relationship, 59 studies mentioned negative relationship, 6 studies mentioned no significant relationship. Now you got confused. Half of the studies report positive, around another half of the studies around report negative relationship. So you are also confused what I get it, whether I get a positive relationship or negative. So here you are going to write a non-directional hypothesis. In this case you are going to write a non-directional hypothesis. What is it? There is a relationship between, there is a relationship or there is a significant relationship between social skills and language competence. In the previous case, we have written there is a positive relationship between, there is a positive relationship between language skills and social skills or language competence and social skills. In this case, we have mentioned there is a relationship between, because we are doubtful from the studies, analysis of the review, we are doubtful about the whether it is positive or negative, because more or less equal number of studies reported positive relationship and equal number of studies reported negative relationships. So you got confused. Generally, when a theory says that social skills supports or it is positive to language competence, mostly studies will be reporting same kind of result, because research is always based on a theory. Otherwise, it is a qualitative research. Sometimes there is an exception, but most quantitative studies will be based on a theory. Theory has been proven with certain researchers already carried out by theorists. So we cannot deny upon that. So whenever you are writing a hypothesis, be very specific, be very unique in your writing, then only it will be successful. Never ever go for simply writing a hypothesis without any significant concern of review. Review is very significant in writing a hypothesis. You got an idea now what we have discussed? Hypothesis, what it is? Yes, it is a tentative generalization. It is a studied hunch about your result. either from your studies that you have been reviewed, either from the previous studies that you have reviewed, or the experience that you have with regard to the special concerns and variables of your study, you can design your hypothesis. If it is through the review, this is the process. Take the status in each and every study, conclude it with the frequencies, and decide whether it is positive or negative relationship, or there is a relationship when you are doubtful about the nature of the relationship. This is the way of designing alternate hypothesis, or we call it as directional either or non-directional hypothesis. The stages of hypothesis writing we have seen, null hypothesis we have seen what it is, stages of development of hypothesis, what were the stages. From your title, review, identify the variables and write the hypothesis. Then later stage we have to test the hypothesis as well. The testing of hypothesis, we will deal it in a different video. I hope that you have enjoyed the video. It's a learning is joyful. From the experiences, from the examples, if you learn, definitely it will be joyful. Definitely it will be joyful. Hope you have enjoyed. Have you achieved the learning outcome? Just analyze my question. Have you achieved the learning outcome? Do you know what is hypothesis? Can you say some of the specifications of hypothesis? Can you name some of the hypotheses? Can you write a hypothesis? Then I can tell you that you have successfully completed the video. The learning objectives have been achieved. Can you categorize the hypothesis into null, directional, non-directional? What are the stages of development of hypothesis? How successfully we can do a hypothesis, design a hypothesis. I hope that now onwards you will not be making any errors in writing, designing and testing the hypothesis. Have a joyful learning. Thank you so much.